In a single explosive night on live television, Donald Trump marched onto Stephen Colbert's stage with young Barron at his side, ready to crush the vicious rumors once and for all, only to watch in stunned silence as his own son publicly turned on him, exposed the ugly family secret, and delivered the most brutal humiliation the former president had ever suffered in front of millions. The studio lights hit hard as Stephen Colbert stepped to the edge of the stage with that familiar half-smile on his face. The audience was already buzzing, but when he said the words, the whole room seemed to freeze for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, and his son, Barron Trump. The applause started loud, then got even louder as Trump walked out waving with that confident stride everyone knew. Right behind him came Barron, tall for his age, dressed in a simple dark suit, looking way more serious than any kid should on a late-night show. People in the crowd leaned forward, whispering fast. Barron almost never appeared in public like this. Trump shook Colbert's hand firmly, then dropped into the big guest chair. Barron sat down quietly beside him, hands folded in his lap. As the clapping died down, Trump leaned over and whispered quickly into Barron's ear, his voice low but sharp enough for the nearby mic to catch a little. "Remember the script, Barron. Just say what we practiced. Nice and clear." Barron gave a small nod, but his eyes told a different story. There was a quiet determination in them, like he wasn't just there to follow orders. Colbert noticed it too, and raised an eyebrow slightly before turning back to the audience with his usual calm. He looked straight at Trump and asked the question everyone was waiting for. "Mr. President, you don't usually bring your youngest son on late-night TV. So tell us, why is Barron here tonight? Is this your way of shutting down all those wild rumors once and for all?" Trump let out a big laugh, the kind he always used when he wanted to take control of the room. He leaned forward, pointing a finger lightly at Colbert. "Stephen, let me tell you something. These rumors are crazy, totally fake news. People like Jasmine Crockett and even Barack Obama spreading lies about my family. It's disgusting. But I'm not going to sit back anymore. That's why I brought my son here, so everyone can see the truth with their own eyes." The audience clapped, but it wasn't the full roar Trump usually got. There was a nervous edge to it. Colbert smiled politely, waiting for more. Before Trump could keep going, Barron suddenly sat up straighter. His voice came out, a little shaky at first, but loud and clear enough for every microphone in the studio to pick up. "I've seen what they're saying online, about me, about my mom and dad, Jasmine Crockett and Barack Obama. They said I'm not really my parents' son. They said I'm Ivanka's kid or something. It made my mom cry when she heard it." The entire studio went dead silent. No one expected the kid to speak up like that, especially not so directly. Trump's smile froze on his face for half a second. He quickly reached over and put a heavy hand on Barron's shoulder, giving it a pat that looked friendly but felt like a warning. "Hey, easy there, son. We've got this. No need to get upset on live TV." The audience sat completely still, the usual late-night laughter gone. Trump tried to laugh it off again, waving his hand like it was no big deal. "Kids, you know how they are. They hear stuff and get emotional. But the truth is simple. Barron is my son, Melania's son. End of story." His voice was loud and confident as always, but the room didn't bounce back the way he wanted. The energy had changed. Colbert leaned back in his chair, eyes moving between father and son, his expression calm, but clearly intrigued. Then Barron slowly pushed himself up from the chair. The studio lights caught his face as he turned and looked straight into the main camera. His voice came out steady, even though you could tell his heart was pounding. "My mother is Melania Trump. My father is President Donald Trump. Not Ivanka. I'm not her kid." The words landed like a hammer. For a split second, nobody moved. Then Trump jumped in fast, slapping his knee with a big grin. "That's right, my boy. Tell him. You heard it straight from him, folks." But Barron didn't sit back down. He turned his head and looked his father right in the eyes. His voice was quiet but firm, and every mic in the studio caught it clearly. "Dad, please let me finish. I'm not a little kid who doesn't understand what's going on." The room went completely silent. Colbert didn't say a word. He just leaned back, watching, giving Barron all the space he needed. The quiet stretched out, thick and heavy. You could almost hear the cameras humming. No one coughed. No one laughed. The entire audience was locked in, waiting to see what would happen next between father and son on live television. Trump's smile tightened. He started to say something else, but Barron kept going, his eyes still fixed on the camera. I remember the night Mom first saw those rumors online. She was sitting in the living room with her phone. She didn't say anything at first. Then she just pulled me into a hug. Really tight. She was crying, but she tried to hide it. She told me not to worry, that people say mean things sometimes, but I could feel how much it hurt her. Trump's face changed. The confident grin faded. For the first time that night, he looked caught off guard. His skin went a little pale as he realized his son knew way more than he had expected. He shifted in his seat and reached over again, putting his hand on Barron's arm like he wanted to stop the story right there. Colbert still stayed quiet, letting the moment breathe. The silence made everything hit harder. Barron took a small breath and finished. That's why I wanted to come tonight. I don't want my mom crying anymore because of lies. I know who my parents are. I've always known. The second he stopped talking, the audience exploded. Applause thundered through the studio, loud and long. Some people stood up. Others clapped so hard their hands turned red. The sound rolled over the stage like a wave. Trump forced a smile back onto his face and nodded along, but his right hand was clenched tight on the arm of the chair, knuckles turning white. He tried to laugh it off. See, even my son knows the truth better than the fake news people. That's what I'm talking about. But the clapping kept going, and it wasn't just for Trump anymore. It was for Barron. The kid had just taken the microphone away from the most powerful voice in the room and used it in a way no one saw coming. Colbert finally broke his silence, his tone calm but serious. Well, that was powerful, Barron. Thank you for saying that. He looked at Trump, one eyebrow slightly raised. Trump sat there still smiling for the cameras, but his jaw was locked and his eyes had lost some of that easy confidence. His own son had just challenged him live on national television, and the whole country was watching. Trump shifted in his chair, his face hardening as he turned straight toward Stephen Colbert. The big smile from a minute ago was gone. He pointed a finger across the desk and started swinging hard. Stephen, let's be honest here. You've been riding my name for years. Without me, your show would be dead in the water, ratings in the toilet. Nobody would watch. I made you relevant again, and this is how you treat me. The audience let out a mix of nervous laughs and scattered claps. Trump kept going, his voice getting louder, the way it did when he smelled weakness. By the way, I made this country great again. Strong economy, strong borders, strong military. Nobody else could have done what I did. But instead of talking about that, we're sitting here listening to these disgusting rumors about my family. It's a witch hunt, folks. A total witch hunt. Colbert didn't flinch. He leaned forward with that calm, sharp smile and hit back smoothly. Well, Mr. President, if your ratings are so powerful, maybe you should guest host the show next week. I'll take the night off. But seriously, you brought your son here to clear the air. So far, he's been doing most of the talking. Are you worried he might say something you don't like? Trump's eyes narrowed. He wasn't used to getting clapped back like that on someone else's stage. He leaned in closer, voice rising. You think you're so clever with your little jokes, Stephen. But the American people know the truth. I built the greatest economy in history. I took out ISIS. I stood up to China. And now I have to sit here defending my own son against lies spread by people like Jasmine Crockett and Barack Obama. It's sad. Really sad. The tension crackled. Trump was trying to steer the whole conversation back to politics, hoping the family stuff would get buried under his usual talking points. He kept talking faster, listing wins, attacking the media, doing everything he could to take back control. But Colbert wasn't letting him run away with it. Every time Trump tried to pivot, Colbert brought it right back. Before Trump could launch into another point, Colbert raised his hand slightly and nodded toward the side of the stage. Actually, Mr. President, since you care so much about clearing up these rumors, we've prepared something a little earlier than planned. Two men in white lab coats walked out from backstage carrying small medical kits. The audience gasped. This wasn't part of the normal late-night script. The technician stopped near the desk, looking professional and calm. Trump's face turned red. He slammed his hand on the arm of the chair and barked, "What the hell is this? This is not a circus! You don't bring medical people onto a talk show like it's some reality TV stunt." His voice boomed across the studio. The confidence he had forced a moment ago was cracking into real anger. He spun toward Barron, lowering his voice into a sharp whisper that the mic still caught. "We're leaving, right now. Get up." Barron looked at his father, then shook his head slowly but clearly. "No, Dad, I want the truth out." The words hung in the air. Father and son stared at each other on live television. Barron's voice wasn't loud, but it was firm and final. For the second time that night, the boy had pushed back hard against his own father in front of millions of people. The audience sucked in a collective breath. Some whispered, others sat frozen. Colbert stayed completely calm, his tone measured and steady, like he was talking about the weather. "Mr. President, if everything you're saying is true, then a quick blood sample is the fastest way to shut everyone up forever. Barron already said he wants the truth. The choice is yours." Trump sat there, chest rising and falling, eyes moving between Colbert, the two technicians, and his son. The two technicians set their kits down right in the middle of the stage under the bright lights. They opened the cases calmly and started laying out the needles, tubes, and alcohol swabs like this was any normal medical check. The audience leaned forward, phones up, recording every second. Trump shot up from his chair so fast it almost tipped over. His face was flushed with anger as he reached for Barron's arm. "Come on, we're done here. This has gone far enough. We're leaving right now." He tried to pull his son up, but Barron stayed planted in the seat. Then Barron did something no one expected. He reached out and grabbed his father's hand, holding it tight so Trump couldn't walk away. His voice rang out clear and strong across the studio. "If you're really my father, why are you scared of a needle?" The words hit like a slap. Trump froze, mouth half open, completely stunned. For the first time all night, he had no quick comeback. The entire audience held their breath. You could hear the quiet hum of the cameras and the faint sound of someone dropping a water bottle in the back row. No one dared make a sound. Before Trump could recover, one of the technicians, an older man with graying hair, stepped forward. He looked straight at Trump and spoke in a calm, professional voice. "Mr. President, my name is Dr. Richard Harlan. I was part of your family's medical team back in 2017. I personally drew blood from Barron when he was 18 months old during a routine checkup. The results at that time showed a clear genetic match with Melania Trump as the mother. I stand by those records." Trump's eyes widened. He yanked his hand away from Barron and pointed at the doctor, voice shaking with rage. "You were paid by someone? This is a setup. Somebody got to you. Fake news, all of it." His voice cracked as he tried to shout it down. The audience murmured louder now, some gasping, others whispering fast to each other. Colbert stayed seated but raised his hand toward the control booth. A large screen behind them lit up with a short, pre-recorded video. Melania Trump appeared, looking directly into the camera, her voice steady and clear. "Barron is our son, Donald's and mine. I carried him. I gave birth to him. Anyone who says otherwise is lying and trying to hurt our family. I support whatever Barron chooses to do tonight." The clip ended. The studio exploded with reaction, gasps, murmurs, and scattered applause. Trump stared at the screen, his face pale, then turned back to Colbert with fury in his eyes. Colbert spoke quietly but firmly. "That was recorded yesterday with Melania's full permission, Mr. President." Barron didn't wait any longer. He rolled up his sleeve himself, held out his arm toward the technicians, and looked his father straight in the eyes. "This is for Mom." The words were simple, but they carried weight. One technician swabbed his arm quickly while the other prepared the needle. Trump stood there, frozen, watching his son voluntarily give blood on live television. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. But he didn't move to stop it anymore. The needle went in smoothly. Barron didn't even flinch. The two technicians moved quickly behind a small portable station they had set up on the side of the stage. One of them announced calmly into the mic, We're running a rapid DNA test right now. We should have preliminary results in about 8 minutes. Live on air. The studio clock started ticking. 8 minutes felt like forever under those bright lights. Trump couldn't sit still. He leaned toward Colbert, voice sharp and urgent, trying to fill the dead air and regain control. "This whole thing is ridiculous, Stephen. You ambushed me on my own son's night, bringing doctors, playing videos. This isn't a talk show anymore. It's a political hit job." Colbert kept his cool, answering smoothly. "Mr. President, you came here to end the rumors. We're giving you the fastest, most public way possible, unless there's something you're afraid of." Trump opened his mouth to fire back, but Barron suddenly cut in, his voice clear and steady. "Dad, you told me the rumors started because people think you and Ivanka—" Trump's head snapped toward his son, eyes wide with panic. He cut Barron off fast, voice rising almost to a shout. "That's enough! Don't say another word about that!" The audience gasped loudly. Trump's hand was shaking as he pointed at his own son, trying to stop the words from coming out. For a few terrifying seconds, the whole country had almost heard the one thing Trump never wanted spoken aloud on television. Barron looked at his father, hurt but not scared, and stayed quiet. The tension in the studio was suffocating. People shifted in their seats. Cameras zoomed in tight on Trump's red face and Barron's calm expression. Colbert said nothing, just let the silence do its work. Then the technician stepped forward again. "We have the preliminary results." The big screen behind them lit up with clear, bold text. "Paternity match. Donald J. Trump and Melania Trump. 99.999%. A wave of sound crashed through the audience. Gasps, cheers, shouts, and some boos mixed together. The numbers stayed frozen on the screen for everyone to see. There it was, in black and white, undeniable. Trump stared at the screen like it had slapped him. His mouth opened, but no smooth words came out this time. His carefully built story was collapsing right in front of millions of viewers. He exploded. "This was a setup!" he yelled, jabbing his finger hard toward Colbert. "You planned this whole damn thing. Fake test, fake doctor, fake everything. I'm not accepting this garbage." His voice boomed across the stage, face twisted with rage. He looked ready to storm off the set. Colbert didn't raise his voice. He stayed seated, looking Trump dead in the eyes, and answered coldly and clearly. "No, Mr. President, this wasn't a setup. This was your son choosing truth over silence." The words landed heavy. The audience erupted again, some clapping, some yelling in agreement. Trump stood there breathing hard, pointing fingers still in the air. But the fight was draining out of him. The king had been dethroned on live TV. Barron stood up slowly. He walked over to his father and wrapped his arms around him in a tight hug right in front of the cameras. Then he leaned in close, whispering loud enough that the microphones picked it up perfectly. "I still love you, Dad, but the lies have to stop." Trump's body stiffened in the hug. His arms hung at his sides for a moment before he finally patted Barron's back once, weakly. The cameras caught every second, the powerful father, the brave son, and the raw, painful truth hanging between them. Then Trump sank heavily back into his chair like all the air had been knocked out of him. For the first time all night, the fight was completely gone from his face. His shoulders slumped, his usual straight posture broken. He stared at the floor, breathing hard. The confident king who had walked onto the stage now looked small and exhausted under the bright studio lights. Colbert let the moment sit for a few seconds, then leaned forward and asked the final question, his voice calm but direct. "Mr. President, the results are clear. Will you finally tell Jasmine Crockett and Barack Obama they were wrong about your son?" The audience waited, completely quiet. Trump lifted his head slowly. His mouth opened, but the usual fire wasn't there. He hesitated, then forced a weak smile. Colbert didn't push harder. He just waited. Before Trump could answer, Barron stood up again and turned straight toward the audience and the cameras. His voice rang out strong and clear, cutting through the heavy silence. "Anyone who still doubts? I just proved it with my own blood. My mom is Melania. My dad is Donald Trump. That's the truth. No more lies. The studio exploded one last time. People jumped to their feet, clapping and cheering loudly. The applause rolled through the room like thunder. Barron stood tall, looking out at everyone with steady eyes. He had just delivered the final blow, simple and powerful. Trump tried to smile one more time for the cameras. He nodded slowly and said in a hoarse, tired voice, "My son is a Trump through and through." But the words came out flat and cracked. There was no energy left, no triumphant tone. It sounded more like surrender than victory. The audience clapped politely, but the real moment belonged to Barron. Colbert wrapped it up smoothly. "Tonight we saw something rare. A young man choosing truth over comfort. Thank you, Barron. Thank you, Mr. President." The lights began to dim as the screen behind them faded in with bold white text. "Blood doesn't lie. Neither does a son who chooses truth." The words stayed there as the applause continued and the show credits started to roll. Millions at home were already texting and posting. The clip of Barron's blood test and his final words spreading instantly. As the cameras cut away for the final time, Trump leaned close to Barron and whispered, his voice low and rough, "We'll talk at home." Barron looked at his father, eyes serious but not angry. He whispered back, loud enough for the nearby boom mic to catch it clearly, "No more secrets, Dad." Trump blinked, surprised by the quiet strength in his son's voice. He gave a small nod, but the weight of the night was written all over his face. The two of them sat there for a moment longer as the studio lights finally went down. The late show had ended, but the conversation it started was only beginning.